The first thing I want to say is, I kind of want it to be the end of the whole Oregon situation. We're competitors. Things get extremely competitive when you're in a game. There's heat of the moment, and I think everything really got blown out of proportion. I think it's just more of an issue because it's a male and a female, but we're both competitors. He's a competitor. His team backs him. I'm a competitor. My team backs me, but I think that's just what it was. So there's no hard feelings. I've always had respect for Coach Graves and Oregon, and in the Pac-12 we back up each other. We don't beat up each other, so it's just competitive. So no more questions about that.
So I have to ask.
Okay.
Two questions. I follow up.
Okay.
So what happened during that game between you two?
No, there's nothing that happened. That's what's funny. I don't recall anything specific. It's just competing. Obviously we were both. There was just heated, calls, and it's an environment where it's really competitive. So, really nothing. I think just it looked like something, or of course we're both coaches. We yell out at the court, or that's not a foul, or this and that. That's just what we both do. So, really nothing. So I just think stuff was blown out of proportion, and people were looking for something.
Just to follow up, I should break my watch. So the next day when you go into practice, I know that your players heard things on the court, and seems like some of them, they're human, it would bother them, right? So as a coach, after they hear this kind of stuff, what did you say to them to say, this is how you move past from that? We got games on this weekend, we have to move on, but we have to address this.
Yeah, so I think in the game, it's funny because I guess players hear a lot of stuff in games, not only that game. So I'm probably called a lot of names, but I've been called a BITCH before. It's not going to be the first, it's not the last, and that really doesn't bother me at all. It's like whatever. So I think, they were hearing stuff, but it's also as a coach, you may say stuff and coach a certain way, and players hear stuff. So I think that, players obviously get emotional because that's your coach. So the next day, it's just, there can't be a situation where there's any interaction on either side. And it happens a lot. Like if you watch, I think it happens in men's games probably every single game. But it's not an issue because it's men. Men can coach different. Men can coach. If men are yelling like crazy, they're passionate. If women are yelling like crazy, they're crazy. So that's just a double standard we have in our sport. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. So me just getting emotional, and if some, like in a game, it can happen. Someone says shut up, you say shut up. Like it's not even a thing. You're a competitor. After a game, you can say okay, good game. I think that's the way it is. But I just had to tell my team that being a professional, being a role model, being a woman in this game, that's having success is really important. I think that there's a way you conduct yourself, and you're always professional. So, I let a few things get to me that shouldn't, and they never usually do. But I felt like I am not the type that ever loses control. I said a couple things, but I said to the scores table, hey, don't judge me for this, but I'm saying something. It's just, I think it's what it is. But I told the players, you stand up for yourself, always. You don't let anybody say anything to you or whatever, whether it's directly to you or not. And I said, but you handle yourself in a professional manner. You don't get out of control. You don't lose your composure. You can stand up for yourself always, but to do it in the right way. And so that's why I just tweeted out that I didn't handle myself right. Because I normally am the type of person that if any game I've ever been in, like say early in my career, if a coach is really into it, animated, usually I just look and turn around. So I think that's the way you have to be, because I think as a coach, you're going to face a lot of this, whether it's players or refs, or you're going to deal with stuff, and that's what adversity is. So how you handle yourself is important. So we talked about that, and I had to talk about that with my team.
When you played in Europe, was it more fierce than it is here?
Yes. A couple things in Europe. In Europe, like the coaches are cussing every other word, whether it's in your language or not. And it's funny because when I first got to Italy, there was a specific word, I can't say it, but it was always being said, and I didn't know that was a cuss word because it was always said, and I was like, what does that mean? And it means like F you. And it's like, they're yelling that always to the ref. It's super emotional, super passionate, and it's not, you could not coach like you coach in Europe here. Like, it's just, you would not have a job. Well, if you were a man, you probably could. As a woman, you couldn't. Because I think it's just a double standard in our sport. Men can coach a certain way, women can't. I mean, like, you just see it across the board. It's just very different. So men can like go up to their players and cuss their players out, and women, you probably won't have your job. So, and I think that it's interesting to me how female players, they handle it differently from a woman than a man. So a female player will handle a man yelling a certain way versus a woman. And that's just the reality. And I think every woman coach in America knows that. And that's the sad reality, but it's the way it is. So, did I answer your question, Greg? Kind of.
Just to kind of clarify, you were vocal on Twitter the night of and then the day after about being cussed out. Were the words directed at you? Were the players?
No, I don't remember. I think you just hear stuff. I mean, I heard stuff from crowd. It doesn't matter though. But I think my message was, regardless of what's said, even if someone yelled in my face, like I still don't have to respond. I choose how I react to that, right? And it should never get to me, and it usually never does. I think just in the game, it was the heat of the game. There were calls that weren't going our way, whether we like that or not. It's just, a lot of that was us. Maybe we were moving, maybe we had our hands on too much, whatever. So it was a heated situation, but I have composure and control, and I control how I respond. So that's my prerogative, what I choose to do. So when I don't respond well or yell at an official, that's not my character. So that's why I apologize for the way I behave, because I know I'm a role model, and I know, but I'm not perfect. And I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to get emotional, and I'm passionate, but I always have to conduct myself in the right way.
And then the Pac-12, I guess, the memo we were sent, you were reprimanded for the post-game comments. What feedback did you get from the Pac-12 about that situation?
Just nothing, we talked, obviously, and I apologize because it's not right. I think our refs do a really good job. I think that the Pac-12, Violet does a really good job running our conference. We have good officials. We really do. I thought, the game was tough, and I think that I should not have said we got homered. I shouldn't have said that, and I didn't even actually remember saying that. But it is what it is. I never blame a loss on officiating. It wasn't why we lost. Oregon played better than us down the stretch. It is what it is. But I can't respond like that in a press conference. It wasn't the most important thing at the time. It was how we handle it and how you handle loss, right? So just got a letter, but we're talking, I've had one my whole career. So I've been here 6 years, and I've had one other letter. So I think I'm doing better than 90% of the coaches in the country, I would assume.
Yeah, and then just this week, how do you move past just the weekend?
Yeah, there's nothing to move past. I do what I do. I don't change for anybody. I may make a mistake, and I admit to it, but there is nothing to move past. There's nothing besides losing. Move past trying to get a win. But I think even if you look at the big picture, going to Oregon and splitting is not bad with two top 25 teams. So I think, Oregon State will be a top 25 team. So I don't think that's bad. Now, in the way we lost, we shouldn't lose a lead like that and stuff like that. So I'm disappointed in that, but we'll adjust to that and get better. But when I look at the scheme of things, there's nothing really to get past. There's not an issue. It won't be the first and last time you see situations like that. So.
Well, let's go on and talk about Colorado and Utah.
Yeah.
Colorado Stanford came back on them this weekend, but they've had a really good year. What do you have to say about them, and then Utah as well?
So Utah first on Friday, a very high octane, a very, very talented offensive team. I think they're putting up, last time I looked, 4th in the nation in scoring, number 1 in the Pac-12. They can score from every position. They have a lot of shooters. They have some really talented young players, and so they're hard to guard. I think that where we have an advantage is our defense and our pressure, and I don't think they've played someone like us this year. So, for us, we need to take care of home court. So we need to be able to win games at home because the road is pretty tough. So, just have to play a good game to beat them. They were up on Stanford at Utah, and they're playing good basketball. And then we turn around and we play Colorado. Colorado is different. So one is a very offensive-minded team. I think Colorado's more defensive-minded, scrappy, play an aggressive zone, very different, have some more athleticism inside. So I think it's a tough weekend for us. Those are 2 hard games against 2 different type of teams, but 2 tough teams that I think are both top teams.
Can I follow up on that? I mean, this is now gonna be the start of 10 days, 5 games with the of UCLA. What's that gonna be like? I mean, how do you guys prepare for that many? You're not used to playing that many.
Yeah, it's funny because I think this is going to be the new reality in the Pac-12 because a lot of people are going to have makeup games. So it's going to be the Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, which is hard in our league. I think for us, we have a deeper bench, just using our bench a little bit better. And that's why I think it's really important to try to win the home games. Because going on the road, then we go UCLA, Cal, Stanford, that's a tough week. And it's a quick turnaround with travel on Tuesday and Wednesday, Friday, Sunday play. So important to take care of home court and play good. I think not only winning, but playing good basketball is important because on the end of that trip, we face Stanford. And Stanford is really tough. So there isn't any team that's not good in that trip. I mean, if you look at numbers, Cal always gives us a hard time. And Cal has had chance to beat us, and they're a good team. They're just not totally healthy right now. So I think that's not a team you can overlook either. So there isn't one game this next 10 days or 9 days that we can just not prepare for. So it's a challenge, and I'm curious to see how we're going to respond to the challenge. But for me, it's preparing us for the tournament, like preparing us for the Pac-12, then come back, and then have to prepare for the tournament, right? And you'd play kind of similar schedules. So I think it's going to be a good learning lesson for us, and it'll be 9 days if we're going to get better in some way or another. So hopefully we can get some wins along the way.
Colorado's kind of been a team that's slowly progressed throughout the years. Do you see, you mentioned them as a defensive team, a little bit of you guys and them and what you guys came from to where you are now, kind of the climb that they're on right now?
Yeah, they're really good. I think that a lot of people didn't expect that this year, but they were undefeated and then played Stanford. But, this is a team last year that upset Stanford, and they're good, and they're extremely good even in Colorado. So when we didn't have the Utah-Colorado trip, I wasn't mad. I was like, oh, darn, don't go to the mountains. That's a really hard trip that everybody hates. The altitude and just they run really well there. They're confident at home. So they're a good team. I think, for us, it's going to be a challenge to see how we play let's play defensively against a great offensive team on Friday, then play against a really good defensive team on Sunday that can score and it's physical. So I'm curious to see how we're going to react to that. JR and I think, came in the same year. So both have had to rebuild our programs, and I think she's doing an amazing job. I mean, her team is playing, and they're playing well for her, and they're playing hard. So I think that's another team that will be a top 25 team, or they are a top 25 team, but I think they'll stay in the top 25. So I think nationally, when you look at the Pac-12, we look like we're down right now, but we're really not. Most teams are out with COVID or injuries, like Oregon was injured. But I think you're going to see in the top 25 in a few weeks, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks, it's going to change because people are out of the COVID protocol. They're now having, their starters back, and they're going to be getting wins. So I think you'll see Oregon, Oregon State, Colorado, Utah, hopefully us, and I think 5 or 6 teams, and that's how the Pac-12 typically is. So.
And then to follow that up, losing to USC and Oregon, 2 close games. You guys had 14 turnovers and 16 turnovers. Is that a problem that's kind of been an issue that you're concerned about? Or?
No, I'm not concerned. Well, it's been an issue I've looked at and I have worked on all year. Yeah, we're turning it over more than we normally do. I think some of that's just when I look at combinations with new players, that's when it's usually happening. And we typically would have been further along now without that month hiatus. So if you look at, so we're basically like how we normally are in December. And we're not nearly as good in December as we are in February or March. So I think just taking that month off, not working through those kinks, not playing for a long time, and having all those days without a game, I think it hurt us because that's an area we have to get better at. And I think defensively, we need to get better in some areas. And then just offensively still. So there's a lot of work we need to do to be a better team, but we will be better in the next month or so.
Yeah, so Shayna comes back from being out, and she has to consistently 2 back-to-back games that are more Shayna-like than we've seen. We've seen glimpses, but that was it. How, it's hard to be out and come back and to do that. What are you seeing from Shayna right now?
She's a much better player than she was a couple of years ago. I think she's worked on her game. I'm seeing a more mature player, a more mature point guard, or she can play the 1 or the 2. I'm seeing a player that really grew from Canada basketball. From being on that Olympic team, just the experience, I can tell it made a difference. it left an imprint on her that shows and that I see as a coach. She is a 180 from how she was a couple years ago. Just as far as coachability, work ethic, mentality, leadership, all those things, she's grown in so much. So I'm so proud of her because this is what we need. And this is my expectation for Shayna consistently. And she can do that. She's won games for us, which are big shots that she hasn't shied away from or been afraid to take. So I think that says a lot about her too. But she's actually she's the Canadian Player of the Week right now, so I was proud of her for that. But she's getting better. And you're going to see her get better and better. That's what we're trying to do is improve her, like become more vocal. I think as a point guard, it's hard to, like, you're working on your game, but you got to organize the offense and run it. And she's growing in that area, which helps our team. So I think both. She's playing better. She's improving. I mean, I think that if you look at her stats from last year and this year, they're just a lot better, obviously. And there's different situations, but I think Shayna, from the three this year, I mean, she's 33%. I think last year she was like 1 for 17 or something. So she's getting better. But she still has to continue to improve and work. But she will.
For years, the Pac-12 has staggered the men's and women's league schedules. Last week, you and the men collided, and then Sunday, you're both on TV at the same time on the Pac-12 network.
I didn't even know that.
You think that might detract from the number of people who attend?
Yeah, probably. And I honestly didn't even know that. But I know. I think it's hard, though, this year because of all the makeups, all the changes, so I think that's inevitable. But, yeah, of course it hurts. I think whenever we're on at the same time or, even in Arizona, if there's a softball game at the same time, it's a lot of fans that overlap. I think those things hurt. But I think that just the way the season is, like, that's going to happen. And that's unfortunate, but it's like we're not even, like, we just heard about this game. It just got confirmed, and it's like we turn around on Tuesday and leave. So even getting charters and stuff like that, like, you don't know what time you're flying out till the night before. So it's everything. And then the hotels, all those things. There's just a lot of logistics that are challenging right now. But, yeah, we don't want to play at the same time.
Got to ask you about free throws.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a problem.
It's a big problem.
What do you do?
I have no idea. I'm trying everything. Just what we do is put them in pressure situations, but it's so different than a game, and I know that as a player. So I try to put pressure situations or put them in conditions where they feel that, but it still feels different than a game. So even if I put a pressure situation, okay, you're going to run. If you don't or you lose, you get a pressure free throw or to end practice or end a drill. That's different than on the line with 10,000 people. I think there was 8,000 at Oregon. So I think those are different. It's just repetition, the muscle memory, the confidence, and you have to do it a lot. And sometimes it's challenging because if we're in a gym and there's 5 baskets, it's like you're not getting hundreds of them. So you're taking 2 at a time and rotating, and but you just got to practice. And as a player, I think you have to have some accountability. If you know you're not shooting free throws well, you should be in there every day working on it. And that's your part, because in practice, I can't spend an hour in practice like PJ shooting free throws. So you have to take accountability as a player. But I have it in the practice plan and working on it because of our numbers. We never shoot 67%. But we have to get better. And I think we can get to the free throw line even more. We didn't last weekend, but I think we can overall, and we should. But, yeah, we definitely have to shoot better than 67.4% or 67%.
So last night on your radio show, you answered a question about using certain players more. Mm-hmm. I know it's a work in progress,
yeah.
But what's that like for you, trying to figure out the right moment to bring in someone off the bench without hurting your defense or your offense?
Yeah, that's been the challenge, I think, because there's been certain games I've tried to do it, and then the team went on a 5-0, 7-0 run. So, but I think that's what happens. I think I just have to do it at the right time, possibly a little bit earlier, and just do that in a time where then if it starts to run, make a change. But I think it's also hard as a player because let's say you go and it might not be you. It might be the combination you're with. It might be someone made mistakes. But it's like there's, these games are a couple possessions away from winning or losing. So every possession matters. So that's another thing where the non-conference helps, because when you have all those games, you can toy with those things and people can get confidence, but it's very hard if you're a freshman. Let's say you don't play a lot. and I'm putting you in the Oregon game on national television, playing against another All-American, it's a lot different than playing against maybe someone less talented, just to get your feet wet and get some confidence. So I think that month off hurt in that sense, just not playing some other good teams before the Pac-12, but it kind of is what it is. I think that part of the hard thing for a player is you have to stay ready, because opportunities knock softly, and you don't know when your opportunity will come. It may be this game, you may not play for 4 games, and then you may play. So I think their job as a player is to stay ready and still work on your game. And you don't get your confidence from practice. You get your confidence from your work outside of practice, from your working on your shot or your game, and then that correlates and carries over to practice. So using the bench is really important. I think that Nettie can give us some girth inside and, help us defend stronger post. I think Araya has been practicing great. She's ready, she's hungry, and she wants to contribute more, and she can. And then, Taylor, I think Maddie, shooters, Helena's been phenomenal. Helena's done a great job at the 1. Like, she doesn't turn the ball over. She really helps us get out in transition, so she'll continue to play some more 1. And she's been great. She's been more aggressive, shooting the ball better. And then, keeping Kate aggressive and Sam aggressive, and Bendu is now shooting the ball better. So the challenge is, and I talked about this on the radio show, we're a really good defensive team. So sometimes there's a challenge of, okay, but sometimes we're stagnant and sometimes we're not scoring the ball great. But then a lot of times if you go sub and you have a really offensive lineup, what happens then? Then you might not be getting the stops. So I think finding that balance of leaving a couple starters in there, maybe with a younger player, or Maddie, she comes in with some starters, or Taylor, or, Gisela. Gisela's another player that can help us. She spreads the floor, she shoots it, but not putting her in there with 3 other freshmen. So I think just figuring that out, and I'm going to play with that a little bit more. And honestly, this is the perfect time to do it, because we're playing Fridays, all these games, 5 games. So it's going to be a good time, because we're a little bit tired right now in the 4th quarter. So, and with our style, we have to play more people. So, but also when we do, they have to come in and be a spark. You can't come in and get scored on right away and expect to stay in the game. So I think, we talk about that, the players, and just coming in and being solid. So, and that's kind of how you earn more playing time. And I thought someone that did a really good job of that was Coy. I thought Coy did a really good job of coming in and being a spark and giving us some energy in Oregon. So.
Do you have any more questions for Coach Barnes? Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Okay, cool. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, everybody. I'll be back with Sam. All right. Well, we've got Sam Thomas here. We'll go ahead and open the floor for questions for Sam. Kim, if you want to get us kicked off.
Sam, I talked to your high school coach a couple weeks ago, and she was telling me they had drills trying to get you to shoot more. Do you remember what those were?
Yeah, some of them. When I came into that school, I wasn't really a shooter. That school kind of made me into a shooter. So back then, everyone was kind of shorter than me, so I was playing the post player. And so she just wanted me to shoot a lot of trail threes. So we would go like 5-on-0 with our offense, and every time she would just say, hit Sam as a trail, hit Sam as a trail. And every time I had to shoot it, so she just kept making me do repetition after repetition. So in the game, it was natural.
When you look at the game film a day later, do you ever think, hey, I should have shot there?
I don't think I ever think that I should have shot there, but I mean, I do sometimes think like I could have been more aggressive, but I don't really think like, oh, I should have shot in that moment. Just overall, probably more aggressive.
No one's ever called you a gunner, huh?
No, I've never been called that.
Adia said she talked to you guys the day after, or right after the Oregon game, just about what transpired. How did her message resonate with you in terms of being a role model and not acting out of character?
Yeah, I mean, Adia obviously spoke to us. I mean, I think she said everything that she's needed to say. We're trying to just put that game in the past. It was last week, so now we're just ready for Utah, Colorado. Hopefully we can get a sweep there.
And when you guys reflected back on the Oregon game, what do you think was the biggest reason why that you guys weren't able to close late in that game?
Yeah, I think we kind of just got a little tired. We maybe got too comfortable. We had a lead going into the 4th quarter, which was not a big lead, but it was definitely a lead that we should have carried on and grown with. I think it's just a learning process for us. I wouldn't say we're necessarily a young team, but we're still trying to be like that top 5 team consistently. So I think we just have to learn from that and know that we can't give up a lead like that.
PJ?
You've got 5 games in 10 days coming up. What's that like for you as a player? I mean, we all think like that's a lot, but you as a player, and you guys now have your basketball legs back under you from the break.
Yeah, I mean, games are a lot more fun than practices, so we're very happy about that. It probably will be a little tiring, but they're doing a good job of managing, you know, practices and what we're doing before and after games, recovery, treatment, eating, sleeping, all that. So we're just excited to be able to get to play some games, you know, make up the games that we lost because of COVID. So we're super excited.
Do you think that lawn delay had anything to do with like, well, the lawn delay caused like the offense to lose its rhythm and stuff like that? Because Adia mentioned that that could be the reasoning behind your guys' turnovers because you had 14 and 16 in those 2 losses.
I mean, yeah, I probably would just agree with Adia. She knows what she's talking about, so I would just have to say, yeah, probably.
Any more questions for Sam? Greg, and then Kim?
How much value do you think there is in taking charters instead of commercial now?
Instead of what?
Charter flights instead of commercial?
It's very beneficial. I mean, I know we love it. Hop right off the bus, go straight up to the plane. You get a lot more rest just because it's not like a full travel day. You really just get in the plane, get there, do what you have to do. So I think it's very beneficial. We're very grateful that we get to charter now, so hopefully we can keep it up going for years to come.
Reflect on the growth of women's athletics?
Yeah, I think so. I know the men charter a lot. I know in a lot of schools it's based off like their footballs because some schools do charter men and women, but I definitely think that it's growth for women's basketball to have both teams charter.
And Colorado and Utah this weekend, what do you know about them? What do you expect?
Yeah, Utah, always a great team. They always have shooters. 1 through probably 15, their whole roster can shoot the ball from behind the arc. So just have to be worried about that. Be ready for shooters, run them off the line, try and get them to do something different. And then obviously Colorado's having a really great season this year. They're always very physical. It's always hard to play at Colorado, so glad we get to have them here. But yeah, just ready for some super exciting games, and it's going to be a battle, but we're ready.
Do you see a little bit of you guys in Colorado because they're known as a defensive team as well, and just the growth that they've gone on these last couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. I think they've done a great job of like building their program up. They've got some really good recruits. We always emphasize defense, so when other teams emphasize defense, we love to see that because, you know, it's going to be a defensive battle probably. Really excited to see the growth of the pack as well. I think Colorado's kind of been in the middle of the pack, but now they're kind of moving their way up, so super happy for them.
This is usually we're getting into the time of the season when you guys sort of get tired and have to find your second win. This is a completely different season for you guys. Where do you feel like you stand right now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we just started season just because we had that long pause with all the COVID breaks and everything. So we've only played like 3 games, maybe it was, since that. So, I mean, we feel ready. We feel brand new, like it's the beginning of the season. So maybe ask me in about a month and I'll have a different answer. But right now we feel pretty fresh.
Any more questions for Sam? Awesome. Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you.
Everybody, good